welcome to Go a Little Mad, a horror movie podcast. My name is Jason, and I love scary movies.
I'm Briana, and I don't. And this week we watched Host.
Have you ever done anything like this before?
I've never done this over Zoom. Obviously, we're not physically together, but there's no reason why spirit can't communicate over the internet.
Nothing's gonna happen.
Visualize us sitting in a circle. Spirit, we invite you to use us to pass on any communication. Is there anyone there? Please come forward.
What was that? Amy, was that you?
I heard it.
I heard something. I think there's something here. Do you see that? Oh,
Emma, how funny.
We've connected with something. We gotta keep going. We gotta talk to it.
Host, the 2020 Zoom movie, not the 2010s Korean monster movie.
But also, there's something else called The Host that's a Stephenie Meyer book turned movie, I think.
Right, but that's The Host. This is just Host.
Oh, so there's two hosts.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
Well, we watched a terribly horrible, no, not horrible, but a terribly scary horror film called Host that I regret watching.
Yeah, there was a Korean movie. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm wrong. That Korean movie is also The Host. That's from 2006.
So you don't know nothing.
I don't know nothing about nothing.
All right, well, let's talk about Host, the movie that we watched. This was written by Gemma Harley, Rob Savage, and Jed Shepard, directed by Rob Savage, starring Haley Bishop as Haley, Gemma Moore as Gemma, Emma Louise Webb as Emma, Radina Drandova as Radina, and Caroline Ward as Caroline.
Now, when we saw the end credits and you saw that they all used their real names, you were very unhappy about that.
That is unacceptable.
Why?
Because I don't like the idea of using your own name in a scary movie, especially dealing with spirits. I think I've discovered in this little experiment that we're doing that paranormal movies are scarier to me than killer movies. Now, don't get me wrong, still scared of being murdered. That's not going to stop. But I am much more scared of the paranormal because I believe in it. And sometimes this is admitting something that's A, embarrassing, and 2, I don't actually want to speak because speaking it makes me anxious. But I feel nervous watching these movies because I feel like it invites something in. So using your real name only invites that more. Ooh.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know Briana, or maybe haven't listened to past episodes where we've talked about it, her and her whole family, very superstitious folk.
Not superstitious.
Okay. So we went to Salem, and there was a book about Ouija boards that you and your sister didn't even permit me to pick up and look at.
That's not superstition.
That's not superstition?
That's just fact. I wouldn't call that superstition. Superstition is like when you have to wear the same jersey for the entire football season because they won one time when you were wearing that jersey.
Right. And how is that any different from you can't pick up this book because it will invite evil spirits into our home?
Because spirits exist.
I see where the disconnect is now. Okay. I am, and I kind of resent that football comment. I am not superstitious. I am a little stitious.
Okay, so the synopsis for Host is during the Rona lockdown, a group of friends get together on Zoom to host a seance, but thanks to some participants failing to take it seriously, things go very, very wrong.
And, just to get ahead of this a little bit, because I'm going to mention it the entire time we watch this movie, or we talk about this movie, rather. You, in the beginning of the movie, were on the side of the shenanigans. Like, all the friends were joking and, like, making light of it. And
no, I was not.
And Haley was being like, guys, we need to take this seriously. And you called her a buzzkill.
I think before I officially knew that they were doing a seance, I didn't quite understand what they were gearing up to do. But I'm very much, you take a seance seriously.
I'm just saying, you called Haley a buzzkill when she was trying to get them to take it seriously.
I've never participated in a seance. Have you, by the way? No.
No.
Would you ever?
I mean, I get, like, I wouldn't seek one out, but if it were something you wanted to do and it were important to you, I'd probably do it with you. But, like, I have no need or want to do one.
So, I mean, like every October, I think about it because we go to Salem and there's events. And if you don't know Salem, Massachusetts, the witches, that's what we're referring to. They do a whole big thing. I mean, always, but particularly in October. And there's tons of events, and some of them are seances. And I've thought about it, but I always chicken out. I've gone to mediums multiple times, and this makes me anxious about that. But I don't think I could ever do a seance because I think I'm too scared.
Well, that's what I was going to say is, like, I know what I just said was that I would, but I'm actually going to put my foot down. Like, we're not allowed to do one because of seeing this movie. I feel like if we did a seance, I would not be able to leave your side for a year afterwards.
To clarify, we would never do a seance. Like, it would be going somewhere to participate in one.
So you wouldn't do one via Zoom?
No. I don't want to do anything like that in my house.
So if we had a seance, it could not be in the home?
Correct.
What if we were trying to contact a spirit that was here?
You're lucky it's daylight out right now.
Of course, there are no spirits here. What am I saying? That's ridiculous.
Jesus Christ.
Spirits exist, just not in this house.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. What's your Rotten Tomatoes for this movie?
Well, this is an exciting one. Do you remember? We've actually talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100%.
Okay, I forgot when I was watching, and I agree. Now, we were blown away by this. We were like, there's no way it's really that good. And, well, you had seen it already. But I agree.
Yeah, I mean, so just a brief reminder for anybody who doesn't know how Rotten Tomatoes works. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not like an A scale. Like, this is not an A++ movie that everybody says is flawless. What the 100% means is 100% of critics who saw it reviewed it favorably. So, you know, a 6.5 out of 10 counts as a favorable review. So just a little reminder for that, you know, if you look at movies like, say, Psycho or Silence of the Lambs, which we just talked about, were both 97%. I don't think anybody's trying to argue that this movie is better or more important than those two. It just means that 3% of people who watch Psycho were like, I don't like this, whereas 100% of the critics who watched this liked it, which I completely agree. I mean, I have some very high praise for this movie that I'll just pepper in throughout this. It's a great movie.
So let's just kind of talk about this because this movie was created because of the coronavirus.
Yes.
Do we think that is why this is 100%?
I think it contributes to it. I think, you know, because this kind of came out, like, at the time when it came out, we wouldn't have said it was early in the pandemic, but now we would, you know? So I think at that point, people were just kind of, you know, we didn't have any new movies because movie theaters weren't open and things were coming out on demand maybe a little bit, but other movies were getting delayed for a year and a half. So I think it was just, this is a movie that they were able to make and distribute without running into any of the issues that really interrupted the entire movie industry during coronavirus. And I think that definitely contributes to it being viewed favorably.
But for me, what I'm more referring to is like the collective experience of we all understand being on Zoom. And obviously they're doing something extreme that not everybody has done on Zoom, but we all know now the experience. And even then, I should say, of being on Zoom. If, you know, which Zoom existed before Corona, obviously, but if, you know, we all were just seeing this movie before coronavirus, or maybe even now when we're all exhausted by coronavirus, would it be reviewed the same way is kind of what I'm getting to.
Well, okay. Actually, I have something interesting for that because there was a similarly done movie 6 years before this one came out. Called Unfriended. It was it came out in theaters in 2014 and it was entirely over Skype, and it was, you know, some friends who all went to the same high school, so they were younger than the group in this. And there was a girl that they had all maybe bullied into killing herself.
I think so.
Or something along those lines. Like either she killed herself because she was bullied or she was bullied and then died. But she ends up just like taking revenge on them all while they're doing this video call on Skype. I've seen that movie a couple times. It's not nearly as good as this. I will say just from like a pure quality standpoint. So I don't think that if this had come out in 2020, it would have been reviewed as well as Host. But, you know, I think it's I do think that when that movie came out, it wasn't as relatable because there weren't people just on Skype all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like there were on Zoom during
Right.
the pandemic. So I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think we all kind of, what makes a movie good? I think part of that is empathy and relatability. You need to be able to feel what the characters on screen are feeling, and this was definitely a situation, seance aside, that we, like you said, we could all empathize with at the time. So I absolutely think you're right. Maybe this is a 95% if it came out 2 years prior.
Yeah. All right, so give us some of your flesh wounds that you found.
Yeah. So there aren't a ton because this is a really small production,
and this is probably the newest movie we've watched too.
I
So
can't
there's
think
not
of
much
anything
out there about it.
Yeah, exactly. Most of this is from an article on the website Digital Spy with Gemma, who played Gemma. So it was filmed socially distanced. Like it was filmed over Zoom. Like these people weren't on set together or anything like that. These were their apartments.
Yep.
Even there's a scene towards the end where Gemma goes to check on Haley. They were actually never in the same room together either.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, and then there's like a quick scene where you see Gemma's arm as she's holding the camera, and her and Haley bump elbows to be properly socially distanced. That was Haley's boyfriend's arm because he was living with her at the time, and so they were quarantined together. So this whole movie was socially distanced.
That's just thinking like production-wise, that's so cool. The way they managed to do these effects was really cool.
Yeah, so Gemma, in that scene where she's in her apartment, she actually is in her apartment, and Haley is like locked in a room further away, and they were like communicating via text while she was there, like between filming, because that actually was Haley's apartment.
Yeah. So do they actually live close to each other then? Because she like walked to Haley's apartment.
It didn't mention, to be honest. I don't know if I'd want that information publicly available if I were them. So
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, I probably should have looked that up, but I don't know, to be honest. The other thing about this movie is pretty much nobody had a full script. A lot of the reactions, including one particularly brutal one that I'll talk about when we get there, a lot of the reactions were, you don't want to say genuine because they obviously knew that these things weren't actually happening to their friends, but it was the first time they had seen a lot of these things. They knew who was going to die. They just didn't necessarily know how, and in some cases they didn't know when. Apart from their own characters, obviously.
I mean, who was going to die? All of them. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I mean, we never see Haley and Gemma die. Just saying.
True.
But yeah, so a lot of the reactions that you're seeing are genuine surprise. Again, I wouldn't call them full-out genuine reactions because they know that this ghost isn't killing their friends, or at least, hopefully. But the genuine surprise to some of the things that happened. And then the last one that I know you're really going to love is the cast did a real seance over Zoom to prepare for this. And again, this is from the Digital Spy article with Gemma. And she said, quote, "I had an experience. There were a lot of things that were in the film that were based on the seance. So for example, the medium actually cut out in the seance. So we've not actually closed it properly. So I could still be in it," is what she says. And then, also, there was a loud bang in my house, and something fell off my bookshelf. I stood up immediately and started crying. I was so scared. I was terrified of it. My character, Gemma, which is a weird thing to say in itself, I think may be a little bit braver than me. And then the end of her quote, "So I'm still undecided about ever doing a seance again, but I think we might be doing another one. I don't know why I keep agreeing to these things." So, you got to respect the courage to do a real seance over Zoom when you're making a movie like this.
Sure. Courage, I guess, is what that can be called.
I will say, I would say before this movie came out, just the idea of a seance via Zoom sounds neat. It sounds like something I would want to do. It sounds like, oh, let's all get together, do this, it'll be fun. But after having seen this movie, even, being the self-proclaimed skeptic that I am, I would never want to do it after seeing this movie. But prior to this movie existing, I think it sounds like a neat idea. Briana does not know what to say. She looks flabbergasted and appalled. I think she's wondering if I would ever do that in our home.
No.
And don't worry, I wouldn't.
I just didn't even know what to say because I was maybe trying to think, do I approach these kinds of things as fun? I don't know. I do get nervous. I don't know. This whole thing is why I'm afraid to actually get into witchcraft because I never want to invite anything negative. That is my biggest fear. So I always Like, I believe in this stuff, and I read about witchcraft and all of that, and I'm really just too afraid to fully dive in because I am so scared of inviting something negative. So I don't ever look at it as, it is fun, but I don't know. I'm scared. I don't know. That was a well-composed thought. So touch points, I mean, even though this movie just came out, I don't think I remember previews or anything like that for it. I just remember that you saw it, and I remember your reactions while you were watching it, but I don't remember anything about it.
I did see it in 2021. So the way our house is laid out is there's like a den that is separated from the living room by the kitchen. So I'll watch scary movies in the den. Briana's in the living room. So she can't see the TV. She usually can't hear it. I won't keep it up too loud, but she can definitely hear, any reactions that come from me. And this movie got some reactions out of me the first time I watched it. It was recommended by Mallory, who regular listeners or people that know me will know is like my horror movie partner, basically. She had heard really great things, and we both agreed it was just incredible. We both walked away from that movie just in complete sync when we talked about it later. Just like, it was so good. So yeah, I had seen it then. I haven't watched it since because, it had only been a year. A couple things to mention about this movie. One, it is very short.
Thank God.
It is just under an hour, which I actually did talk about later. But, historically, I'm kind of a snob about it. Like, I think if a movie can't even muster 90 minutes, like, stop wasting my time. But that said, I do think there's something to be said for only taking as much time as you need. You know, this movie did not feel short, but it did not feel drawn out. It felt as long as it needed to be, which I really appreciated. So, just an hour movie. It is on Shudder. For any horror fans out there who don't know what Shudder is, it is a streaming service aimed directly at horror people. They've got some original series, original movies. This wasn't a Shudder original, but it is a Shudder exclusive. So, they do like free trials and stuff. But I can't recommend this movie enough. If you haven't seen it, if you like scary movies, watch this movie 100%. And I know I say this every week, but I would watch it before you listen to the rest of the episode because we're going to spoil the entire movie for you. And it's just got some really good moments that we could never do justice because they were just done so well in the film.
So before we get into the film, I thought it would be good to shake up the format just a little bit and talk about the origins of this movie, like how it came about, because it's a fun story. I read an article from Datebook. It's by G. Allen Johnson, and it's from the director, Rob Savage, and Gemma Moore. They are kind of discussing things in the article. Just like all of us, Savage was bored and he organized a Zoom call with his friends. What a time when we were all just doing that and pretending like that was normal and acceptable. In that call, he decided to prank them. During the call, he started hearing noises around the house and he decided to investigate. In that investigation, he brought his computer with him. And a demon, which he had crafted with DIY special effects, attacks him. This scared them all on the call, including Gemma Moore. Like I said, she was on the call. So Moore said, "I was so angry, I was having one of those days, then Rob scared the living daylights out of us, and I was in shock." He made a 2-minute clip out of it, and he posted it to Twitter, and that went viral. So that basically spawned the idea of the movie. I would just like everyone to know there is no forgiveness in my heart for someone who does this to me. So don't ever get on a Zoom call with me and pretend that a demon or something attacks you because you're dead to me.
Now, let me ask you something. Do you know when this prank took place? Like, what was the turnaround time from, like, this prank to the movie?
12 weeks.
So he did this prank, and then 12 weeks later, the movie was finished?
Yeah, that's literally my next sentence. This entire project was conceived, shot, and edited in 12 weeks. And a quick Google search of, like, how long does a movie take to make? Shooting alone for a typical movie takes 1 to 3 months. Just the shooting, never mind the rest of it. So this was all done in like the longer time frame of shooting for a regular movie, 12 weeks.
And it's done very well.
Yeah. So Savage directed it over Zoom. The actors operated their own cameras, sound, and special effects. They had a workshop. So Savage hosted a workshop for the actors on like how to do old school special effects, like door closing and that kind of thing. And the actors all pitched ideas of what to do with objects in their own homes. Moore was unsure if she wanted to do it, as we kind of talked about already. She was scared. And when they did that seance as a test, basically, which absolutely not, I would be out at this point, she said that she cried during it. She's generally just so scared of the dark, she even sleeps with the lights on, apparently. A lot of the film is improvisation, so kind of similar to Blair Witch in that way. They, quote, embrace the necessity of improvisation and self-direction. And Moore said, I think the amazing thing is we were all friends and we could push and communicate with each other in a way that meant we could get all the incredible shots and stunts. So overall, reading a little bit about how this was made was like really important for me because it pulled back the curtain or whatever they say, because I am fully scared by this film and just thinking about the background. Like, they had fun. This was really creative. It's a great lesson in filmmaking. Briana, this is not a real thing, is very helpful for me. And by the way, he did get the official blessing from Zoom. I wonder, did And Just Like That get the blessing from Peloton? Probably not, but they got the blessing from Zoom.
Well, and I think one of the really neat things about this is, I don't know if you'd noticed this or looked into it or whatever, but, you know, I talked about the length of the movie. The length of the call is the length of a Zoom call, like a free Zoom call. If you were using a trial account, it would have ended right when this movie ended, which I think is really neat.
Actually, at one point during the movie, that little message comes up that says, like, if you want to keep going, here's how you can extend your time.
Good times.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to get into the movie now?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the movie fully stays in the Zoom world. We have no opening credits. It just begins with Haley starting the Zoom meeting. So she's leading this thing, basically. Already at this point is where I'm saying that I'm grateful that this movie is only 55 minutes long. She's only wearing a tank top, so she sets her computer down to put on a sweatshirt, and there's like this knocking noise happening in the background that is worrisome to her.
And you.
Well, yes, of course, because I am already on edge, and I do not stop being on edge for the entire 55 minutes of this film. She kind of starts exploring her apartment to figure out where it is. She opens a closet and stuff falls out. She discovers that it's coming from outside. It's Gemma, who was throwing rocks at her window. So again, I guess they live near each other. And I think, was she asking to be let into the Zoom call? Is that what she was doing?
Yes. So earlier, before this, you must not have noticed, but when Haley is starting everything up, you see the little pop-up that somebody's in the waiting room waiting to join. Haley doesn't see it. And you didn't see it, I guess. So then Gemma is throwing stuff at her window to get her attention so she can let her in.
As the rest of the friends come in, there's all this small talk and they're kind of troubleshooting. Gemma comes in on her phone and on her computer. So there's that like double mic sound. We all know what this sounds like because we have all experienced the troubleshooting of Zoom meetings, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean,
this was triggering.
I was going to say, that's a nightmare in and of itself, right? Like, that's not like scary movie scary, but that is real life scary. We've all been in those meetings and we have all been mortified. And it's a good note to start on.
Yeah, it was really perfect. They did a really good job. I said that it was like a walk down memory lane to the early days of the Panorama when we were all like trying to figure out what the heck is going on and how to use Zoom. Yeah. Some of us still are. And like, I still am trying to tell people like, oh, you're on mute, or can you mute, or can you pick a mic? And it's a nightmare. So, and I wonder, were these technical issues real in a way for some of them and they had to work through it?
I wonder. I feel like Gemma probably knew how to.
Yeah.
It's a good note that you make about it, because I have kind of the same thing where like the time period of this movie like brings us back to the beginning of lockdown when like it was still like a novelty. It was neat. It was like, oh, we're just gonna stay inside and play board games for a couple weeks, and here we are 2 years later. We didn't really know better, but it really does capture that feeling of like, oh, like lockdown, new, exciting. We're doing seances over Zoom instead of
this is fun,
instead of blocking highways in Canada, so.
Radina joins, and her boyfriend is like loudly chopping in the background, which is just another thing that we all deal with. She mutes, and they all kind of start talking about how Radina and her boyfriend are living together because of lockdown and how like it was too soon, which is funny because that's basically what we did. Yeah, I mean,
lockdown like accelerated our relationship. Yeah, for sure. It worked out for us, thankfully, but. I will say they get into a little bit of conversation about the pandemic and how weird it is and how funny it is. And one of them says a line that made me like laugh out loud. I didn't write down who said it. It might have been Radina, I think, when she first joins in. But she says, it's so weird. You have to hide a cough with a fart now instead of the other way around.
Yeah, that was Haley. Was it
Haley? Yeah. Because they're also concerned about coughing in public.
Yeah, which is still true. Yeah, this is where I started to get. So the boyfriend, by the way, he goes to the bedroom, so she's alone now. They're getting together for a seance, and they start putting on these like scary filters on their face, these like mask filters, a couple of them, to joke around.
You did not like that.
I hated it. I thought it was like already happening. I'm like, oh God, what's going on? Then Teddy, the only guy, he joins. Or before he joins, though, they start gossiping about him and this girl are dating, and they're surprised that they're together. And I gather they don't like the girl.
Yeah, and there's also a bit of implied tension between Teddy and Caroline. Or Carolyn.
Oh, Caroline.
Yeah, Caroline, right?
Yeah.
Which I had just a couple notes as they're talking about, as Radina and her boyfriend are fighting, even social distancing can't save you from awkwardly watching fights between your couple friends. And then when they get into that like gossip about Teddy and his girlfriend, what really struck me is it all felt so realistic. Like this felt like friends having actual conversations.
Yes.
It sounded like conversations we'd have with our friends when we're shit talking our other friends.
Yeah.
And, I just appreciate that because this was obviously 12 weeks, low budget. You normally don't get that kind of feeling from these kinds of products. Normally it feels stilted or awkward. But this whole cast just does a really good job. I think they all friends in real life? I think they are.
I think
right?
so, yeah.
And that you can tell. And
Yeah.
that really, I think without that chemistry, this movie is half of what it is.
Yeah. It's funny because we've watched a couple movies this week that we made almost comments like the opposite, where there's no character development or we're not invested in any of the characters. One of those movies was Uncle Joms, by the way.
See, I knew you were going to make that joke, and I was like praying we didn't have to talk about it. Because...
We don't have to talk about it.
No.
This
What
can
I
be
mean
standalone.
is you and I, because that joke is not going to age well. Okay, that's
I don't
gonna be
need
like,
it to.
That's going to be like listening to a podcast today and hearing somebody reference dabbing.
I don't need it to age well. That's not me.
Think about the
I
archives.
age well. My jokes don't. It's fine.
Think about posterity, Briana.
But what I want to say about that was this had no character development because it's 55 minutes long and there's one central thing happening, but we do get a feel for who they all are. We get this like quick little background. I want to say this intro period, typical period waiting in a Zoom meeting before the official thing is going to start, is like 5 minutes. And we know they're all friends. We have a backstory about people, and it's like perfect.
Yeah, and that's also why I appreciated the whole like Caroline Teddy tension, because there are a couple scenes after this too where they like it'll show Teddy interacting with his girlfriend or saying something or and then they show Caroline's face and her reaction and she looks kind of unhappy about it. And I did really appreciate that because like what we know about this movie is that like already at this point we know it's all over Zoom. We know that it's like a ghost thing. And so like that romance isn't like shoehorned in there to have a romantic subplot. Like it's not like will they, won't they tension. It's just a real detail. It's just a little detail that makes the characters feel more alive and genuine. And I love that.
So after they have that little chat, Teddy does join and he's like their good time class clown friend.
And he's also the only male friend.
Yes. Yeah. And he talks about the item that he brought in. So they were all instructed to bring in like a personal item.
Hold on. I know I just said a ton of things, but I also have to, can we talk about Teddy's man bun?
Oh,
it was terrible.
There's so much I didn't notice because I was so scared this whole time.
So it was just like this tiny little bump, no bigger than the tip of my thumb, okay? And as soon as he logs in, they make a fun comment, like, oh, didn't know you had a man bun, Teddy. But it's just like that, his hair is not long enough to have a man bun yet. I know that the in-between phase is awkward, but like if you're going to commit to it, at least wait until your bun is ready to put it up. And he did not, and it looks ridiculous, Teddy.
He brought his Nans. Oh, they're all British, by the way.
Except for Haley.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did she just not? Okay, but yeah, she just didn't have an accent.
I wonder if like, did she get made fun of for being the American friend? Did they like make America jokes at her?
Probably.
Yeah, she's kind of an outcast, I'm sure.
So he brought his Nan's jewelry box that has a ballerina on it, and it's one of those. Everyone has seen one of these. Like it's a toy practically, and you wind it up, and it dances, it twirls, and it has a song.
Okay,
not scary. Because I've seen this a million times.
And this is where I am completely flabbergasted. Because you are terrified of the most innocuous things. And this music box is creepy. No. It's old. It's old. And it's a ballerina that twirls.
Nans.
It's a ballerina that twirls. And the ballerina has no face. The ballerina's face is worn off.
It's old.
Yes, the old worn off face is creepy. That's the point I'm making.
Well, he's afraid of it too.
Look, I'm not saying that this thing scares me.
You were creeped out by it.
Yeah, but my point is, you, who is terrified by literally everything, did not find this creepy, and that just makes zero sense to me.
I have to keep you guessing.
That's not in line with past experiences at all. It's creepy, guys.
And Teddy's afraid of it specifically because his brother used to chase him around with it. So he has trauma. Haley, she organized the event, like I said, and she says she's gone to seances before and it was always like fun and cool. So she's excited for this. And obviously she's done a seance in regular life, like not Zoom, a regular seance. She reminds them to take it seriously, but you can tell there's already a couple people who aren't going to. Teddy being one of them. He's just there to drink. Gemma is like the fun friend, so she's just there to have fun. Caroline is me. She's the scared one, but intrigued enough to be there. Radina is the skeptic, so she's you. She's like, oh, whatever, like, I'm just here because I wanted to be with my friends. And Emma, who I forgot about almost all the time in the beginning, is just kind of like the chill, quiet background friend, I feel like.
Until like halfway through the movie when things start really going down, both Emma and Radina take like a backseat.
Yeah.
Like, neither of them are really featured at all, whereas you get a lot of Gemma, Haley, and Carolyn and Teddy up until Teddy leaves.
In
Spoiler.
3 seconds.
Yeah. Whereas Emma and Radina are very quiet until things start happening with them, and then they're very much the focus.
Yeah. There is a professional who's going to join them. Ceylon is her name. And before she comes in, they take a shot at the request of Teddy, basically.
Yeah, Teddy says they're going to take a shot every time she says, I think, the word astral or astral plane.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're obsessed with that. Ooh, I have a whole history on the astral plane.
Oh, boy.
Well, not a whole history, just a definition. But anyway, they cheers to happy spookies.
And Haley, before Ceylon joins, gives them one last warning, guys.
Yeah.
Just be respectful.
Yeah. It will be spooky. It will not be happy. So Ceylon joins, and she says that she's never done this over Zoom, but basically, you know, the astral plane has no language, so this isn't a barrier, being on a computer.
And let me just say, I love Ceylon's accent. She's got a nice Scottish accent.
Yeah.
Very pleasing to the ear.
Just for anyone who doesn't know, if you're not familiar with the astral plane, I thought a definition would be helpful.
Please.
Per Wikipedia, where we get all of our information, it's the world of celestial spheres crossed by the soul in its astral body on the way to being born and after death.
Wait, so you had to look this up? You didn't know?
I mean, I know, but I know in a way that is like not a good way of explaining anything. I wanted sentences here, structure.
Fair enough.
It's generally believed to be populated by angels, spirits, and other immaterial beings. Other views say rather than a boundary area crossed by the soul, it's the entirety of spirit existence or spiritual worlds to which those who die on earth go and where they live out their non-physical lives. So that kind of second half is where I stand more. When I read the first half, I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really think of it as that restrictive. So
I mean, this sounds like atheist propaganda to me.
that's what this podcast is, ultimately.
Welcome to Go a Little Mad, an atheist podcast. No, absolutely not. You can't do that.
Most of them are not familiar with this kind of thing, so they kind of all ask questions about like how it works. Who can I talk to? One person asks, can I talk to a pet? So they have a very sweet outlook on this to start.
Yes, and to remind you, you can talk to a pet.
Yes.
As Ceylon says, there is no language on the physical plane.
Yes.
It is purely emotional communication.
Right. Ceylon begins by telling them to turn off their lights, light a candle, and close their eyes. She advises that the Zoom environment might leave them less protected. Now, I didn't really understand this. I've done spiritual things online before, and there was never like that kind of disclaimer.
What spiritual things have you done online? You can't just gloss over that.
I did that soul blueprint reading.
Oh, you did have a reading.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
From Joe Figueres. She does the Esoterics podcast if anyone's interested. It's really good.
Now,
not sponsored.
Let me ask you, if the opportunity to do that had arisen after you saw this movie, would you have done it still?
Yes, because it's totally different. It's one-on-one, and it's about me and like my soul blueprint and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, and anyway, I was too afraid to Google it. Again, I'm like, I don't want to open doors. I was just too afraid to Google, why is that potentially bad? I don't know.
Well, so she explains it. It's because
I didn't hear it, I guess.
Yeah, you were stressed out. So
Blocked out.
When you do it in person, you're all holding hands, and it's very easy to break that chain. It's very easy to break that chain because you just break hands. But what they're doing is they're creating a circle here, but it's not a physical circle. So it's harder to break because you're not just physically breaking it. Right. So she suggested that they envision themselves with a rope around their waist, and that rope is connected to everyone else, to the astral plane.
Yeah.
And they visualize when they want to disconnect. They're supposed to visualize themselves cutting that rope with,
right.
She says, a knife, scissors, whatever you want. Just visualize yourself severing that connection. And again, she just explains it can be more dangerous because if the connection is harder to break, it can be harder to get rid of any unwanted presence, which, I'm sure won't be a problem for them.
If it's harder to break, it's harder to get rid of an unwanted presence.
Exactly. If it's harder to break the circle.
Okay. And that's why I didn't write any of that down. I summarized it as they did like a grounding and protection meditation, because to me that goes against what I felt I understood, which is like, if you are grounded and protected in your circle, but you're inviting them into the circle. Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Got it.
I'm glad I was able to help you work through that.
While they're in this meditation to ground and protect them, Teddy's girlfriend just pops in and she starts causing like background noise, and they're all pissed. They're all just like looking at the cameras, mad. The two of them together dramatically take a deep breath, and she blows it out, and she blows out the candle when she does it, which she thinks is hilarious. And then she basically says like, LOL, Teddy's leaving now, and they leave the meeting.
Yeah, they're going to go do it.
Yeah.
Everyone's upset about this.
Yes.
I was writing Teddy's a dick, but as I was writing that, Gemma called him a knob sack.
That's better.
I love. Yeah, like British insults, like they got some really good ones, and knob sack is one that I'm really going to have to try to remember, because Teddy is an absolute knob sack.
But Ceylon encourages them to not let that ruin anything, and just, brings them back in. She also casually throws out that any of them may become possessed, and they freak out, but they're like, she explains that the word possessed obviously has lots of negative connotations to it, but it just means the spirit has taken you. But if it's a good spirit, it doesn't mean anything bad. No one thinks about being possessed by a good spirit, though. They open their eyes, and right away they basically see a light by Radina, and she says it could be the fridge or whatever, because she's the skeptic, and she's just like, whatever. Then there's a knock, and Ceylon calls out for it to communicate again. And then there's two more knocks that now sound more like someone knocking on a door. And it's Ceylon's takeaway order, which is her takeout. That's what they call it, takeaway. Love that. She's very apologetic, but that is just so weird and unprofessional to me. I would be so pissed off.
Yeah, and also, say you order, like, DoorDash, and then, like, it's an hour later and it's still not here and you expected it to be here.
Yeah.
Like, maybe start the Zoom call with that. Like, guys, I'm so sorry. I ordered this food an hour ago. It's still not here.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I will say it's a really good fake out, because, like, through this entire scene before she comes back, you don't know if she's coming back. Like, because as soon as it happens, you're like, oh, what a good fake out. And then you're like, wait, was it real? No, it was fake. Was it real?
But then
no,
she
it was
takes
fake.
too long to come back.
She takes a while to come back. So over the course of her leaving and coming back, like, at least I did, like, 3 times. No, nothing's happening to her, or she's never coming back.
Right.
And it's just really well handled.
Whenever someone leaves their camera, you're just looking at their space. And Ceylon's space is just really dark. And I think she lives like in the country or something. I envision her living in a cottage, because I think behind her was like a fireplace. But there was also something inside the fireplace.
That was like a pellet stove.
Okay, but the way that it looked, because it was so dark and I was scared, was like, it almost looked like there was like a little statue in it or something, and it was freaking me out. And I was like, is it a statue or is it not? And then when she left, she went like into her kitchen, never turned a single light on, so it's just darkness. And I'm just staring at that. This entire film is a jump scare, the entire film for me. So I was just on edge waiting for her to come back, and she took forever, but she does. Apologizing again, and then they get back into it. Haley jumps because she felt a hand on her shoulder. Then Jenna screams, and the sound was so jarring because it's into a computer microphone. Probably like when I scream on this pod and you have to turn the volume down. She felt something on her neck, and she says the pressure is almost unbearable. Ceylon encourages her to listen, and Gemma says that the name Jack is coming to her. She says she knows a Jack from school. He was kind to her, but he had hung himself. Gemma starts crying, and Ceylon is like helping her through it.
And as this happens, you took a giant breath in for probably about the 20th time in a row. I wrote here I was concerned because I hadn't heard you exhale. The entire time we're watching this movie, you're just going... You just sounded very concerned. So I think this was the first moment where you were just like, at least visibly, super uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, because now they're specifically talking about a spirit, and there's been spirit things happening. While Ceylon is like helping her through it, on her screen, Ceylon's, it seems like a black figure like is over her shoulder and attacks her almost, and her screen just goes dead. Like she's gone.
See, to me, so it happens very quick, and it's not very clear what it is. And I didn't want to look up what it was or anything, but it just looked like something fell to me. Like, to me, it looked like something fell off the bookshelf to her side there. Oh, my God,
no.
And that's what it looked like to me.
No.
But, yeah.
No, it looked like a whole shadowy demon figure just, like, overtook her.
But you also thought the wood pellet stove was a...
I didn't actively think that, though. Mm-hmm. I just was, like, looking at it, and then, you know when you're, like, scared and you start staring at shadows, and then shadows start moving? Like, that's, like, what it was to me.
All right, fair enough.
But they didn't really see that or react to it at all because they're focused on Gemma anyway. So, again, you might be right. It may have just...
They reacted to it.
Do they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't react to, like, a figure.
They react to her leaving. That's what I mean.
Yeah, well, they see that something happened. They see, like, a clatter, and they're like, oh, my God, what just happened?
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was really scared.
She was traumatized. It's okay.
Gemma's face turns into like a smile, which I also thought meant she was possessed, so I was freaking out about that because it was like a creepy, weird smile. But she just admits that the whole thing was fake. She said she had to fake it because everyone was quiet. She needed something to happen, so she made something happen. Haley's pissed.
Yeah, so two things here. One, absolute psychopath, Gemma. She did such a good job selling this. I'm concerned. I think she's too good a liar now.
Yeah.
The other thing is you, as soon as Gemma, reveals that it was a joke, you start typing furiously. You can hear the sound of the keys just, so angry at Gemma's audacity.
It's rude. You don't fuck with this.
Yeah.
And she was warned.
She was warned. And, but, I mean, the good news is zero consequences.
Yeah.
Nothing happens, so it's fine.
So they're all kind of hoping that Ceylon comes back because Zoom, people just leave, things go wrong, they come right back, right? So in the meantime, they all just decide to take a bathroom break. While they're gone, Gemma's candle is blown out by something.
You see a little light. I don't know if you noticed that, but...
I sure didn't.
So they talk about this little light between... near Redina, and it is between the stove and her, and you can see this small little light that almost kind of dances once or twice. It just moves slightly. On Gemma's, you see this little light that dances near the top of the screen and then moves down, and then the candle goes out and the light disappears.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's very quick, happened very quickly, but to me at least it looked very similar to the same light, or it looked very similar to the light Redina had.
They settle back in, and Gemma basically coaxes it out of Haley that she's mad and makes her, admit that she's mad about something.
And also, when Gemma sits back down, she relights her candle, doesn't say anything about it.
I know.
You don't question that candle went out?
Because I think the only person who believes in any of this is Haley.
Yeah.
So, because she's done it before, so my assumption is that she has some sort of belief in this. Everyone else is just there for some level of fun. And so she's just like, yeah, my candle blew out. Whatever. She's not going to... Anyone who doesn't have an inkling of belief in this is just going to think, yeah, this happened. Yeah, this happened. Until it's in their face.
Fair enough.
I mean, what would you think if your candle blew out?
I mean, in this exact scenario, I'd disconnect immediately. I'm not even kidding. I am a skeptic. I am. But I am also a scaredy cat. And I would want no part of this, if I'm being completely honest. It doesn't mean that I believe it. I don't know enough to not fully not believe it.
Yeah. That's a sentence.
Yeah, double negative there, but I think I made my point.
She's basically like, yeah, I told you guys to take this seriously, and they just start arguing. And while they're arguing, Haley gets aggressively yanked back in her chair until it hits the wall.
Not to get too much into the politics before we get into the spooky stuff, but Haley's absolutely right. Her friends are dicks.
Yeah,
She went through the trouble of setting this up, and if you don't believe it, you don't believe it, but at least take it seriously for her. At least don't...
And be respectful to the professional.
Yes, exactly. And, at this point, the professional isn't there, so thankfully she doesn't know that Gemma's terrible yet.
Yeah.
But I will say, Ceylon, absolute professional. When she comes back in via telephone later, she is just when she finds out that Gemma was lying, she's just all business. She's like, oh boy, you've done it. Okay, well here's how we're going to fix this.
Yeah.
Ceylon is the consummate professional, and these people are disrespecting her. Okay?
Yes.
But yes, so anyway, Haley's chair gets yanked back, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Continue.
She says she thinks that there's something there. Duh. But she's excited because I don't know why. Like, that alone that was violent. It wasn't like a light tap on your shoulder. It was yanked back until you hit the wall. That's not someone nice.
Yeah. Again, this is moment 2, immediately disconnecting.
So she calls out to it. She hears something, and she makes them turn their audio all the way up.
And you, like, practically cried at this.
I hate it. I was like, whatever happens now is going to be really fucking loud.
That's exactly how you said it, except you sounded closer to crying when you said it. You're like, it's going to be so loud. You were very unhappy.
Oh, we'll get to the crying later. Don't worry.
I will say, too, at this point, as I noticed, Haley's apartment, pretty nice. She has a lot of space in her apartment, which is, I feel like, rarer and rarer these days.
There's like a sound in her space, and I couldn't tell. I remember I asked you, I was like, is that something growling or something moving? And you said it sounds like movement. This is where I wrote, can't explain how quickly I would have just pieced the fuck out of this room by now. Like, I'm so gone. I'm not even friends with these people anymore. And I'm announcing to the spirit, I'm not even friends with these people anymore. I'm done. Haley walks around her space, but there's nothing. And instead there's a big noise in Caroline's space. So it's just like flipping through their spaces. They make her explore, so she goes, even though she is so scared.
Yeah, Haley's like, Caroline, you have to check out the noise.
Sweet Caroline.
And I'm just, why? Why do you have to check it out?
No, yeah. No,
You don't.
you don't. You absolutely don't.
No.
Caroline lives with her parents, though, which I was comforted by. It doesn't matter. The comfort does nothing. Like, whatever. But I would be like, oh, she lives with her parents. Okay.
We actually briefly met her dad earlier, and he's a really nice man.
Really?
Yeah. Do you not remember her like introduction? She's in the kitchen.
Sure
She's in the kitchen with her dad, and everybody's like talking to him, like, "Oh, have you gone out much lately?" He's like, "No, I don't go out much."
Are you kidding? I'm blacked out. I don't remember this.
Did you watch the movie?
Maybe not.
Yeah, he's very nice. Maybe it was Emma's dad. Somebody's dad.
Okay. She calls out to her dad, though, as she walks around. It looks like an old house, so it's probably haunted already. But she determines that it's coming from the attic. She opens up the hatch and pulls down the ladder. And
at this point, Briana, quote, "You're really going to go in the attic? Are you fucking joking me?" End quote.
Well, that's because what I wrote was that she's not a real scared girl. Real scared girls, me. No, we don't go into the fucking attic. That's rule number 1.
So I have kind of a potty mouth. I never hear you swear this much. You are so upset by this movie.
Oh, before she goes in, though, she switches out to a selfie stick because, okay, she's a little smart. She's not going to put her body in there. She's going to put the selfie stick in there. So she pokes the phone into the attic and she scans it. There's just a pair of hanging legs, just casual hanging.
They're hanging as if somebody were hanging by their neck, which is interesting because that was what Gemma's fake story was.
And when she scans back and they're gone.
And I don't think anybody notices it, right?
To my knowledge, no one seems to notice the pair of hanging legs.
Yeah.
We switch back to Haley. She's exploring her house, and she has a Polaroid that she did talk about in the beginning. I remember she told everyone about this Polaroid camera. She takes a picture down the hall because she thinks she sees something.
Now, for our Gen Z friends, a Polaroid camera is a camera where you take a picture and it prints out the picture right there for you, and then you shake it. But you're not supposed to do that. Polaroid told people not to shake it after the Outcast song.
Well, yeah, but you're showing your age because Polaroids are coming back, which means Gen Z knows about Polaroid.
Okay, well, I'm old. I'm not trying to hide it.
On the Polaroid, we see a pair of hanging legs there. So they're all freaking out. Something breaks. It's a light bulb in Emma's space, and so she pushes away from her desk.
That made you scream so loud.
Oh, yeah.
When Emma's glass broke,
yeah.
It was
because it was basically
splitting.
The hanging legs, and then boom, the broken light bulb. Caroline is fully traumatized. Haley calls Ceylon on the phone, who's fine, but just has lost her internet. So everything's fine with her. She's willing to do the rest of it on the phone. Now, you did say she's a professional, and she is, but I wonder why she didn't just call Haley immediately. That's what you do. When you lose the internet, you call.
It is possible, I think. It's in the realm of possibility that she never had Haley's personal phone number. They could have communicated fully through email up to this point. And then Haley gets her number because she's, a business person who has a phone number available.
I guess. They say some weird stuff has been happening and she gets them back on track. She refers back to Jack and Gemma. So Gemma has to admit that she lied.
Except Gemma doesn't admit that she lied. Haley calls her out for it.
Well, yeah.
And Haley's like, Gemma, do you have anything you want to say? And Gemma does not admit it. And Haley has to tell Ceylon.
Right.
Gemma never owns up to it, which is like an alpha...
Well, she does... No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's an alpha move for Haley, but it's also like, Gemma, you gotta stop, you gotta own up to it. Be an adult.
I feel like she does say, like, she is now forced to say that I made everything up, right? Like, that he's not even real.
Yeah, well, that's after Haley tells
Yeah,
Ceylon,
yeah.
and then Ceylon presses Gemma for more information.
Right.
Just saying, I'm not a big fan of Gemma right here.
No, she's the real villain.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jack in of itself is not even real, so the story is entirely concocted.
But yeah, this is what I was saying earlier, though. Like, I love how no nonsense Ceylon is about this whole thing. She's not even like upset with Gemma. If she's offended, she doesn't even like
she's
show
disappointed.
that. Yeah, I mean, she's disappointed, but she's not. She's just like, okay, well, this is what you did. What you did was you invited anything to come into this world using that mask that you created,
Mm-hmm.
and now this whole situation's out of control, but we can still get through this. We can banish it. We can be okay. And she's just very like, she's trying to help him through this, and I just love that, because I feel like me, I'd be like, well, you're dead now, and then I just hang up. You know?
Well, she does say it could possibly be demonic. Thanks, Gemma. Ceylon tells them that they're going to ask the spirit yes or no questions, which is traditionally what you would do during a seance anyway. So she basically says one blink or one sound is yes, two is no.
Yep.
She asks if it has a message, and in Haley's space, the lights blink once. Then when asked if it's a friend, there's basically like a lot of electrical action, and Ceylon is gone again.
Before the electricity goes out in Haley's apartment,
Yeah.
the lights blink twice, which is a no.
Oh, see, I missed the lights blinking twice. I was wondering, like, that was just one quick flash. So are you lying and saying you're a friend?
No, and it could have been, I think it was probably intentionally unclear. Like, it could have just been the light, like burning out,
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that it was twice is purposeful.
For sure. They all freak out. Haley makes them do the grounding and protection circle again to, like, break the circle, right? That's what they want to do now, is break the circle.
Yes.
And then they just kind of like end it by thanking the spirit and blowing out their candles. And they're immediately relieved, because I think nothing immediately happens. So they think, okay, we did it. That's what she said to do. So we're fine now.
And at this point, I was thinking that this movie might have like a reverse effect on you than you think it will. Because you had mentioned earlier when we were watching this, like, this is so rude. You used the word rude.
Mm-hmm, I did.
Because now you're going to be afraid of talking to a medium.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point in the movie, I'm thinking that maybe it's going to be like, you are now going to listen to the medium's every word out of fear of like disrespecting the spirits and causing this to happen.
No. I already have all of these fears anyway. Not necessarily when I speak to a medium, because when you speak to a medium, it's like personal and about you and the spirits around you, but like, whatever. I'm still going to talk to mediums. It's fun. Radina walks off to find her boyfriend, and as she like walks away, she's still carrying her computer, and there's a body hanging. We just see the legs again behind her. But nobody really sees this, right? Because they're all just getting ready to sign off, basically.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I would not be watching anyone else's screen. I would just be too busy looking over my own shoulder every 4 seconds to be seeing anything.
She can't find her boyfriend. Meanwhile, they're just chatting again, getting ready to sign off, joking about how they won't sleep tonight, and like everything's hunky-dory. Caroline suddenly vanishes. And that's what I wrote. Does she like disappear and they start wondering where she goes?
She says she I'm pretty sure she got up to go somewhere.
Okay, yeah. So
I would like to say, though, I think right before Caroline disappears, you gasp. You gasped at something. And I thought I missed something, because like it's like this wide shot of like all 5 or 6 people on the Zoom.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what happened? What did I miss? And you said nothing. Nothing happened. You just gasped.
Because that's like the 3rd or 4th time that I gasped at like either nothing or a fake out. Like I gasped when Haley opened her closet and the mops fell out. I gasped when the rocks were hitting the window. I was gasping at the fake outs, and then whatever that was, I know what you're talking about. It was literally nothing, which is why I was like, I'm not even going to explain this, because I'm at a 10 right now.
It's like one of the characters blinked unexpectedly.
Yeah, exactly.
Blunk?
What?
Is it blunk?
It's blank.
past tense of
They
blink
blank.
is blank?
She blank.
All right.
She blank you.
That's not true.
They're kind of wondering where Caroline is because she takes a while to come back, but then she comes back in. But what they realize is that it's just this animated video background that she created of herself.
Yeah, actually,
she talked about this at the beginning.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier. So she does this thing with Zoom where you can record your background, and it's a recording, a looping recording of her walking into her room, opening up a drawer, and brushing her hair. And you see it over the course of the movie. I think you see it one more time after this. You see it 3 times in all. So it's not actually her being back. And they're all like screaming at her, like, Caroline, come back. And
then they're like, oh, haha, it's just her background. Like they realize. But instead, something falls on screen. It seems like we see like a split second of the inside of someone's mouth. Because I turned to you and I was like, is that a mouth?
Yeah. And I wrote a time, I think it was Caroline hitting the laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In Emma's face is what looks like an animated mask kind of just floating.
Yeah, so she's got like the Zoom filters on. And so what this is the Zoom filter.
I get it.
Oh, did you not get that?
I was wondering why did it look animated? And then I was wondering as I was writing my notes, was it supposed to not look animated? It was just the effects.
Oh my goodness, Briana. I think I might have to start doing the summaries.
Maybe when I'm really scared, you do. I don't know.
So she's using, because Emma's the one that's been using all these creepy filters the whole time.
Yeah.
It's Emma doing the filters. And so it's just like a mask, but it's like a blank space in her room. So the implication is that Zoom is detecting a face there and putting a filter on it.
That is... No.
I honestly can't believe you didn't put that together sooner. We watched this...
That makes me so scared to even use Zoom.
We watched this less than 24 hours ago, just for the record. Like, normally there's a little bit more time between when we watch and when we record. But this movie was so short, it didn't, the prep didn't take as long.
Oh, God.
So we watched this movie less than 24 hours ago, and you
scary.
apparently missed one of the scariest things about it.
I hate it. Oh, my God. Okay, I'm, like, processing. Anyway, so as she, like, reaches out to touch it, it turns. So, like, the face turns. And then she runs and grabs flour and she sprinkles it on the floor.
Very smart. Yeah.
Very smart, and something I don't want to reveal. All the cabinets in her kitchen open aggressively at the same time. She sprinkles it and then sees there's footprints walking toward her. So the spirit is there walking toward her. And then all of her lights go out. Emma then gets lifted and then just dropped. But she's okay because we see her again later.
She's okay. And the thing that boggles me, though, is she is still in her apartment at this point.
Yeah.
Like, leave. Just leave.
Mm-hmm. They're all screaming to get Radina's attention, but she's distracted by her oven, which is smoking. And then she does go to the computer because she's like, what? Because she's missed all of this. And her boyfriend's body suddenly falls from the ceiling. Now, was it his body hanging earlier?
I thought about that, and I don't know, to be honest. I would err on the side of no, just because we'd seen hanging legs several times.
Right.
But I think that's, they probably set up that question on purpose, and I think it's a great question.
Yeah. She then runs, but abruptly everything stops, and there's just a droplet of blood on her computer. Like, we hear, like, a thud, there was a bit of a ruckus, and then we don't see Radina again. Back to Caroline. Her looping background is on, and then suddenly it's just her face being repeatedly smashed downward against the keyboard.
Yeah, and this was brutal. It was very well done. You did not like this. I hope you don't mind me saying this.
I cried.
We paused the movie.
I cried
for a minute, which I've had to do. I had to pause Hereditary. So it was really brutal. It was just very unexpected. Very brutal. Brutal is the word. So I think it's just worth revisiting. What I talked about earlier, in that a lot of this was unscripted, or at least unknown to the other parties involved. So. Mm-hmm. Gemma says that she believes the shot we see in the movie was the first time that she and most of the other party had seen that happen to Caroline. So again, you get some genuine reactions in there. And, just again, like, it's probably the most effective scene in the movie, I would say, in terms of making you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
100%.
The general you, not you.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was very close up because, if you think about it, we're looking at their Zoom screen right now. So we all know what that feels like. And just the sound of it, like, it was literally her face repeatedly hitting the keyboard. Like, that's what the sound was. For me, the reason why I cried, there was already a moment earlier in the movie where I either wanted to cry and or wanted to stop watching and regretted everything. There's almost always a moment in these movies, if they scare me even a little bit, where I actually regret this entire thing. Like, can I even continue doing this podcast? I always get back to saying yes, but during this, it was too much. And this was like the cup runneth over, or whatever you say. I've mentioned this a couple times, that this whole movie is 55 minutes of a jump scare for me. And that's exactly what it was. And that's just, at that point, I was like, I can't. The tension was so high. It was so awful. I kept trying to like analyze why this moment was so hard, but
yeah,
I can't even.
I did note that at one point, that like once this movie starts, it doesn't really stop.
Yeah.
At all.
Right.
Until it's over.
In every movie we've watched, there's been at least one moment where I can catch my breath and be like, okay, I can forget about what just happened. There's daylight. There's a family. There's something else happening. There's another part of the story. But this has no other part of the story. It is 50 minutes of them being haunted and tortured. And that's it.
And I mean, and that's scary, because that's real. Like, if you're living in this, you can't suddenly take a break to pursue a subplot. You know?
Right, exactly.
You got to do it.
Mm-hmm. So Haley tries to call Ceylon, I guess. Is that who she's trying to call, do you think? Because they get in a fight. Her and Gemma argue.
So her and Gemma are arguing. And I will say, Haley's right. It's 100% Gemma's fault, everything that's happening.
Yeah.
And yes, she tries to call Ceylon back.
But Haley gets yanked away again against the wall. Then there's a pause, and then she quickly and aggressively gets yanked out of the room, and the door just slams shut behind her.
Yeah, it looks like she's like dragged by her legs out of the room.
Yeah.
And then the door slams as soon as she goes through it.
Teddy comes back. He's just like done having sex or whatever, and just pops back into the room, which is so disrespectful to do during this kind of event, but whatever.
But also disrespectful of him, but also imagine being in his shoes. Where you just like, you know, you just have this like great sex with your girlfriend, and then you're like, I'm gonna go see what my friends are up to, and you log back into this.
But like, he doesn't even notice. And by the way, the only person left on screen at this point is Emma.
Yep.
Gemma actually, when the thing happened to Haley, she gets up and leaves her house, and we either see her then or later running outside until her camera cuts. She's just gone. So it's just Emma under a blanket, wide-eyed, traumatized, and now Teddy comes back into the room, and he's just like, what's up, guys? Oh, and actually how he comes in is like clown marionette first, which I was afraid of.
Yeah, so his camera turns on, and you see the table where he was sitting at before, and you see enter from the right side of the screen like a clown, but you can see the strings, the marionette strings, but you can't see the handle, you can't see hands, you can't see anything, but just this clown puppet walking across the table. Because
nothing is serious to him, so of course he's going to come in with a scene.
It's also, I think, fun to think about the fact that, you know, the interviews that we read and everything mention that a lot of the actors had input on their character arcs. They had input on what would happen to them, you know, props around their home that they could use. So that just means that this actor that plays Teddy has this clown marionette and this really old music box just hanging around his house all the time, and somehow hasn't been killed by a ghost yet in real life.
Well, he also seemed to be out in the country, so I wonder, like, is he with family or something like that?
Yeah, Teddy's house was obnoxiously nice. Like, they were talking about it when he first joined. He's got a very nice house.
So he like sits down, and again, just Emma is left. But the spirit immediately comes for Teddy. Like, there is no time for Teddy to even process that something has gone on, because his lights go out and he's like, oh, it's fine because we're in the country, like, whatever. But he's walking around and demons are just popping up everywhere. I think I barely watched this part.
Yeah, so you were watching it through your fingers. So yeah, he's exploring in the dark, and there is a moment when like a burnt face or like a demon face just like pops onto screen. And I will say, you screamed, and it's probably the loudest scream we've had to date on this podcast.
That was loud.
That was a very loud scream. The whole scene with Teddy is very tense. Like, it's because up to this point you see little things, or you see things happen, but you don't see what's perpetrating them. But
and there's an escalation for everybody.
Yes.
Except Teddy.
Yeah, but this scene for Teddy, he's here. 30 seconds later, you see a face, and then, you know, a minute after that, you see like his, well, I won't spoil it, you'll get there. But just like this scene with Teddy is the first time that you just really see so much of everything. You know, like with Radina, you didn't really see much. With Haley, you saw her, you didn't see anything. And you didn't see Radina's boyfriend die. But with Teddy, you see what happens to his girlfriend. You see a face. You see all these things actually happen. It's probably, of all the deaths in the movie, it's the best view.
Yeah, and you know why? Because he had the space for it. He had an indoor space and an outdoor space, and I bet everybody else is in an apartment except for Caroline. So that just kind of goes back to like they used their space the absolute best they could.
Now, here's the fun thought exercise, though. If Teddy doesn't log back in, is he safe? Or was he already a part of it?
I think yes. And actually in my notes here, I was like, imagine Zoom bombing this event, because that was a thing that was happening in the beginning of the pandy. We like meetings were getting Zoom bombed with like dicks or whatever. And but imagine you're just an asshole who Zoom bombs and you come into this and you're seeing what happens to Teddy in 3 seconds. And it's like, I regret everything. I don't want to be Zoomed bombed. But now you're in it and you're dead, is what I think. Anyone who comes into this is dead. I think Teddy might have gotten out just in time, but now he's...
So to confirm, you think if he doesn't log back in now, he probably lives?
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens to him basically is, he runs kind of around his house and starts seeing things, and he goes outside. He has a pool. I don't think it was the girlfriend. I think this was a man.
No, it was his girlfriend.
It was?
Yeah, it was his girlfriend. I couldn't tell. You see his girlfriend lifted up.
Yeah.
Fully in the air, not even just like a few inches off the ground, fully in the air. She is suspended over the pool. Her neck snaps and she is dropped into the pool.
Yeah.
And then Teddy just like freaks out, obviously, and runs away. And he runs to like, it's like a barn.
A barn is what I thought, yeah.
And in this barn, there are no lights. You see a quick shot of a noose. There's a noose hanging somewhere, which I think we can assume Teddy didn't put there. Yeah. He doesn't even see it or comment on it. And then in the back of this dark barn is just the open playing music box. That isn't creepy, Briana?
No.
Ridiculous.
But as he approaches the music box with a lighter that he's using for light, by the way, he gets yanked back and I think knocked out, and the lighter falls out of his hands, and there's probably just like hay on the ground, so that lights up immediately. His body lights up pretty immediately. Emma, sweet Emma, is just watching this whole thing alone from under a blanket. She's like, Teddy, wake up, Teddy, wake up. And he's not. And then he does, but his entire face is lit up in flames. And it's just him screaming and screaming and screaming until it times out, basically. And his screen is just flames, frozen flames. That's really cool. Great. Love that.
Yeah, but that music box isn't creepy.
Of all the things that have happened, the music box is not. Emma emerges from her blanket. Her door opens. So she leaps from the bed and hides in the corner. And then she grabs a blanket and throws it to the doorway. And it lands perfectly on a figure.
Yeah, so just to be clear, there's no one standing there, but the blanket lands and supports itself as if it's draped over somebody's head.
Oh, God, I hated it so much. It looked like a Dementor.
Yeah, you weren't happy.
She runs outside, but she gets grabbed and thrown. Her body just lands on a table, which breaks, and we don't hear from Emma anymore.
Yeah, so if you're keeping track, everyone on screen at this point is dead. Everyone on screen is dead.
Yeah.
The only two people either left alive or that we don't know about are Gemma and Haley. So we've still got Haley's view. You can see her apartment, but nothing is happening there. You just see the kitchen and the closed door that she was pulled through. And you can see, and Gemma's not even, is she in the call at this point? I think she's still in the call, but you don't see anything.
Her thing timed out.
Her thing timed out. So Gemma, who is running over to Haley's to check on her. Those are the only two people left alive as far as we know, and we're not even sure about Haley.
Yeah. Gemma comes bursting through Haley's apartment via the window, I guess. She looks around. She's still in the living room. She gets knocked out by like a bottle.
Yeah, a wine bottle just comes up off the counter and just slams itself into her head. So This was actually something she talked about in the interview as well. This one wasn't her idea. They asked her, like, hey, would you be okay with being hit in the head with a wine bottle. She's like, yeah, sure. And apparently, like, when they filmed that, as I mentioned, this was Haley's actual apartment, and Haley was like quarantined in the other room. They didn't actually work together here. But there were paramedics on standby. She talked about how much detail Rob Savage put into this, and the producer she mentioned, I can't remember his name. I apologize, producer, because she praised you very highly. But she talks about how much detail and care they put into this scene, which I just really appreciate.
Wait, though. So when they break glasses on people, they use this breakable fake glass thing. So
sugar glass, yeah.
So what did they use? A real wine bottle?
No, I'm sure they used the sugar glass too.
Okay.
I mean, those things are cheap, but I mean, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, true.
You know?
Okay. But she gets back up, and the kitchen cabinets start opening and closing again, and she just yells like, fuck you. And then she goes down the hall, and she does all the same things that Haley has done already, which is like look in the closet, look in the bathroom, and I'm freaking out. It's awful, but also barely watching. So Haley just comes out of nowhere. So I don't really know where Haley was. She was under something, I guess.
Yeah, so Haley is in... so they never really clearly label the room, so you don't know if it's like her bedroom or a guest room or something, but it's like a room that you can see at the very end of the hall, and there's a desk on the left side after, like, that you can see past the door frame, and she comes out from under the desk. She was hiding under the desk.
And they greet each other. They're like happy to see each other.
And this is where they bump elbows, but they didn't actually bump elbows. So you're still seeing it from everyone's Zoom screen. So basically, the way it was handled was that Gemma was recording from outside the door that Haley was in, with that door closed, so you could see the background behind her. And then later, Haley recorded her parts.
Yeah.
And you never really see them on screen together, and that's because they weren't.
Right. Then they start looking down that hallway again, and they use the Polaroid to take pictures. So did they think they see something, and that's why they're taking pictures, or are they using that as light?
I think it's, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
We had said she used the Polaroid to success earlier. It lights up the room, you see something, and then also it takes the picture, and you can see something on the picture. But I think they're using it as light in this scenario, mostly because she doesn't even look at the pictures, really. Right. It's just that the flash, that sound of the whirring, a pause, and then another flash.
And then they walk down the hall with, like, each...
Yeah. They're getting closer and closer with each photo, and then as they...
I'll just let you say it, because I didn't watch.
They're progressing down the hallway, just, Polaroid. And it's I love this moment because I love the sound of the camera, because you hear the flash, you hear boom, and then as it winds up, and then again and again and again. So they're just walking down this hallway, boom, boom.
I hated it.
And then as they get basically the doorway into the main area that we've been seeing of Haley's this whole time, as they get in there, they take a flash. As it lights up, something, it's very, it's very fast, very unclear, but it's clearly the demon that's been tormenting them this whole time, attacks the camera, and the Zoom meeting ends. It says your trial time has expired.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie.
And the credits roll as Zoom participants, which was hilarious and adorable.
I love that. Yeah, it's so cool.
So cute.
And this was when you noted that they used their real names, and you were furious. They used their real names. Are you kidding me? That's you.
That doesn't sound like me at all.
Sounds exactly like you.
So in lieu of a review, we talked, about the article for how the film originated and all of that. And I just wanted to kind of wrap it up with a quote or two from Rob Savage. Savage said that he was influenced, very obviously, by Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity. And in fact, he had them watch Paranormal Activity 3, which is, I guess, is his favorite.
Now, you've never seen any of the Paranormal Activities,
I sure
right?
have not.
So the flower thing that Emma does, that's actually something that happens in the first Paranormal Activity.
Oh, okay.
Is they put like flour, or maybe it's sugar, I don't know, some sort of powder on the floor outside their bedroom, and the next morning they find footprints. So I don't know if that was a purposeful reference, but that is something that they do in Paranormal Activity.
Have you seen 1, 2, and 3?
Yes. Those are actually the only ones I've seen. I didn't see anything after 3.
Did you like 3?
No.
So interesting that, like, this director, that's, like, the one that he prefers.
Maybe I probably went into 3 kind of cynical, because at that point, it was pretty clear that they were trying to do with Paranormal Activity what they had done with Saw, where it was just release a new one every year.
Yeah.
So at that point, I think by the time I saw 3, I was just like, whatever, this is going to suck. So maybe I didn't give it a fair shot. Maybe I should watch it again.
Great. Well, Rob says, as a horror filmmaker, which, by the way, he was 28 when he made this film, You're always looking for a way to make people take the movie home with them. So when they're in their bed or when they're in their dark apartment, they're thinking about your movie. They're thinking about all the horrible things you've put in their heads. Thanks, Rob. That's me. That's me. Just traumatized. Appreciate it.
Well, I mean, when you get down to it, that's what a horror movie's supposed to do, right?
Yeah. So setting a movie in an enclosed space, setting a movie in people's homes, especially during this time when we're all confined to our house, it seemed like a natural fit. We wanted this to be a movie that closes in and tightens its grip. Success. Like, that's exactly how I would explain this.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Like, I could not breathe for 55 minutes.
Yeah. So again, if you've listened to this whole thing and you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. If you like scary movies, you're going to be hard pressed to find a better one in the last few years than this. I'll go out and say that.
Well, let's go our score, speaking of.
Yeah.
So what's your jump score?
My jump score, 10.
10.
There were a lot of them, and they were all good. Even the ones like the fake out ones, they never felt cheap, which is, I feel like something that a lot of scary movies fall into these days, where it's like, we're going to do a jump scare with somebody tapping on a window and it's not really scary. And then you kind of roll your eyes. But even like the food thing, like none of them felt cheap.
I would say in the beginning, before the seance even started, that little bit was for pathetic people like me who don't know what they're getting themselves into. I was jumping when she opened her closet and things fell out of it. I was like, what's the rock hit? Like I was afraid already. So
yeah. So is yours a 10 as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is the first 10 that I've given for a jump score. What about the nightlight factor?
So the nightlight factor, I feel like you're going to go a 10 here.
100%.
I'm going to give it a 9. Only because in the world that Rob Savage has created here, it's very self-contained.
Yeah, that's true.
The danger to these people is the situation that they are in and the situation that they put themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to be able to say to yourself, I will never do a Zoom seance and I will never disrespect the astral plane, and I will never invite these demons into my home. So that I feel like that just makes it a little better. Whereas if this were just like, friends having a Zoom game night and they were just like bombarded by a demon, that would probably keep me up a little bit more at night, because then it's like it could happen to anyone at any time. But this was a situation that they brought on themselves and resolved fully within their circle. So that's why it's a 9 instead of a 10.
Well, that's comforting. That's good. And that does work for me. But then also I have that weird thing where I think simply watching this film invites this negativity. So I'm back to a 10.
Yeah.
What's your horror buff score?
I mean, it's a 10.
Yeah.
Right? I can't think of anything this movie did wrong or could have done better. It was perfect.
Same for my Scaredy Cat score. This is the scariest I've ever been, hands down.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
Right? I mean, even Blair Witch. This doesn't even hold, or Blair Witch, I should say, doesn't even hold a candle to this movie in terms of how tense I was through this.
Yeah, so we did watch Blair Witch for the podcast, for anybody that didn't know this. We watched it, we recorded it, and then as Briana got into the editing process about halfway through the episode, the audio was just unusable. Mm-hmm. And we decided not to re-record or anything because then we felt it would be less genuine. Our consensus was that while we could recognize the importance of the movie and the things that it pioneered and did well, it did not hold up very well. And it wasn't something that really scared us or
not at all
was scary to Briana. So just to kind of fill people in when you say that.
Yeah.
I would agree this is much scarier than Blair Witch, though. Obviously Blair Witch walked so this could run.
Correct, of course, yeah. And my Neophyte score is also a 10. This was like just hands down a good movie. I don't want to watch it again. I never want to see it again, but it was a really good movie.
There we go. I need to stop. I feel like I'm just giving out 10s. I feel like I need to we're going to watch
Let's watch some really shitty ones.
Yeah. So speaking of really shitty, what's next?
What we're watching next, I think you would describe as not a shitty movie. We're watching It Follows.
Oh, that's going to be another 10. I'm sorry, guys. I really don't mean to be a fanboy for all these movies, but It Follows is... I'm excited to watch this movie again.
I'm not.
If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out before. This is a movie, It Follows, that is very unique. The soundtrack is one of the best horror movie soundtracks I've personally experienced. It's a really unique concept, and it's just something I would not want to spoil for anybody.
That's what we'll be watching next week. Make sure you watch it ahead of time.
Just to be clear, we say next week. We are still doing bi-weekly,
yeah.
Just so y'all know.
That's right. Thanks for listening to Go a Little Mad. Remember to follow or subscribe to us on your favorite pod platform. Like us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Go a Little Mad. Share us with everyone you know and give us a 5-star rating and review. It makes all the difference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.